clause. Dr. K managed the environmental mitigation project required by the California Coastal Commission for Edison San Onofre, nuclear generating station, and that project also included the restoration of 150 acres of degraded wetlands at
San Diego.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Dr. K.
Thank you. Professor Strauss gave you your lecture, and I'm giving you homework. I'll leave it with Sheila. One is a San Diego Union Tribune article about Buena Vista Lagoon, going through the same movie that we're going through. This is a new movie to you. It's not to me. This has gone on for a long time. Wetland restoration in California. The other is an article I wrote for another nonprofit, Banana Creek Renaissance, about this process we're in. So get yourself educated. We're a nonprofit. Send money.
Yeah.
Send us
First to my club.
Send us $1. We'll make you a member. You can read this. I won't read it for you. I'm going to talk about the first two elements of our three-part mission in the context of the Ballona restoration and this visitor center proposal. We're a typical small nonprofit. We have about 2.5 employees that we pay and provide benefits to, and about 1,000 dues paying members. This is the Friends of Ballona Wetlands' position on the Ballona restoration. Just take it in. This is not new. This is more than 10 years old. Been refined a little bit around the edges, but our position has essentially been consistent for the last decade. Ready? This is the community restoration that Friends of Ballona Wetlands does, which Dr. Luce mentioned at the dunes. Twice a month, every month, for the last 25 years, a reliable, dedicated small workforce of volunteers shows up, and we have them pull weeds from the dunes. 2 acres is about all we've been able to cover. There they are again. Dr. Luce touched a little bit about the history of the restoration project. This has been going on an awful long time. Don't let anybody tell you that this is moving too fast, that they haven't had an opportunity to participate. And I'd like to point out in 1994 that the Friends were plaintiffs in and settled a lawsuit with the California Coastal Commission related to Ballona, and you can Google the history of it. And we have been soundly criticized up to the present for that settlement. And if our board could go back today and do it all over again, we would settle exactly the same way that we did in 1994. Let me tell you about CEQA. Dr. Luce touched on it. Let me give you some straight talk about what CEQA is and what it isn't, what an EIR does and what it does not do. An EIR does not give anybody permission to build anything. You cannot turn a spade of soil in the ground with an EIR in your hand. You have to obtain a litany of other permits from state and federal agencies. An EIR describes the project and bounds all possibilities that you may want to incorporate.
No, it doesn't.
And it analyzes them for all potential environmental impacts, so you and your lawmakers and your agency bureaucrats who issue permits can make an informed decision. And excluding things from an EIR is bad policy. Because if you have a good idea that you exclude and you decide later you want it, you can't do it. You have to go back and redo the EIR, and it takes a lot of time, and it wastes a lot of money. So you don't want to rig the election by pushing things out of an EIR before you've even looked at it. And I know that there's a resolution before you tonight, which I have not read, but the basics of it have been downloaded to me. And what it sounds to me like is you want to take some things off the table before you've even had a chance to analyze them by the process that our state established 40 years ago and has served us very well. It takes a long time, and there will be lawsuits. I promise you, embrace that litigation. It's part of the process. It refines the process. It makes a project stronger at the end. And nothing worthwhile is instant. This isn't easy, and it's not simple. right? We choose to send men to the moon and bring them back safely before the end of this decade, not because it's easy, but because it is hard. Or as the professor would say, because it is hard. By voter initiative, one of the few good things that our initiative process has done in California, and boy, we've done some stupid things, the California Coastal Act. And the Coastal Act is the law of the state, and nobody's circulating a petition to amend the Coastal Act. And these are all the things that we're held to by our own law to do. At Ballona, in the coastal zone, enhance and restore, take into account social and economic considerations, maximize public access, recreational opportunities, and give priority to coastal dependent development. What does that mean? What is coastal dependent? It means you can't do it anywhere except within the coastal zone. You can build a freshwater marsh or upland habitat anywhere. You can build it in Bakersfield. The city of LA is building freshwater marsh in the Owens Valley at 3,500-foot elevation, 300 miles from here. You can't build tidal wetlands inland. You can only build tidal wetlands in the coastal zone because you need the ocean. Tidal wetlands have to take priority in a Ballona restoration development because you can only do that near the coast.
Yeah, right.
There are other good aspects of tidal restoration. I won't.
It already is.
This is just another picture of the history. Dr. Luce showed you some of it. Marina Del Rey was built here. Area 8 was filled in by the dredging. Here it is. Walls here, berms here. Here's the dredge pumping slurry right here. They filled this whole area in. And then they added more when they built the Marina Freeway. Here's where the ball fields are. They raised the elevation, what is it, about 25 or 30 feet elevation. It's all filled in, it was wet. Area A, Area B, Area C South. You see the ball fields there? Don't forget about that Little League field. There are political ramifications. This is the average percent of non-native or invasive plants in areas A, B, C, and D. Red and darker red it's ecological junk.
Oh, bull.
Green is wetland habitat. Don't let anybody tell you that Area C South is valuable, precious, endangered species habitat. They're either uninformed, maybe they're delusional, or they're trying to sell you a bill of goods. Be suspicious. This is the Friends of Ballona Wetlands Conceptual Restoration Plan for Ballona. It's about almost 10 years old. What vision we had. I mean, the Bay Restoration Project has taken all our ideas. Knock out the berms of Ballona Creek, create tidal wetland. Leave the good wetland habitat in place. Preserve the dune habitat over here where the Friends are working.
Yeah, right.
Enhance the freshwater riparian corridor at the base of the Westchester Bluffs. Upland habitat on Area C North. Recreation and ball field on Area C South. Even back then, the Little League. This is kind of an old drawing of one of the alternatives that I think you'll see. There's a Little League field there. And this is, I think, what alternative one will probably look like. I particularly like this brackish marsh here. Groundwater flows off the Westchester Bluffs, flows in a northeastern direction. But you can only get that groundwater flow if you dig the land down to where the water is. And then it just seeps right up. You don't even have to plant anything. You'll get freshwater marsh.
Yeah, they lowered it.
That's a pretty nice picture. Here's that area where the brackish marsh formed. I like artists' renderings. It's visionary. It's bold. Friends of Ballona Wetlands would have thought this up if we had some competent hydrologists on our team. We would have
Oh,
done
this is, what's her name? Submission drawing.
This is the project that I did
Foundation.
as part of my day job with Edison. And the reason I want to talk to you about San Diego is there are very eerie parallels with Ballona. This used to all be wetlands. Then Bing Crosby and his buddies came down here and built the Del Mar racetrack so they can gamble. It filled in wetlands. But before that, the U.S. Army filled all the wetlands in here and built a blimp airfield. And before that, farmers went to the other sides of the valley and they filled in all the wetlands there, planted tomatoes, strawberries, and let their cattle graze. And like Ballona, it's bisected by major transportation routes. Interstate 5, Jimmy Durante Boulevard, North County Railroad, Pacific Coast Highway. Our goal was to go in here and unfill what was filled in. We had an EIR too, a Joint Powers Authority was our lead agency, just like the Bay Restoration Commission. They had 5, 6 different alternatives, and of course, the do-nothing alternative, no project. There was a lot of arguing in the public. We want to see a lot of blue water while we're driving by the freeway at 85 miles an hour. No, we want a lot of upland, we want habitat for the birds. The JPA wisely chose the middle ground, mixed habitat alternative. Everybody got something. Nobody was completely happy. Everything you see here that's blue or green, we dug out to get the land elevation down to sea level so the tide would come in. It's in the coastal zone, tidal dependent project. All the pink areas are where we put the dirt that we excavated. We built those up and we planted native vegetation there. That's where the farmers have been growing tomatoes and strawberries. This is the Army airfield area before we started. It was about 65% invasive species and some native shrub species.
Yeah.
That looks good.
You have to cut the tumor out to save the cancer patient.
God.
And when you cut the tumor out, you're going to take some good tissue with it. But unlike the cancer patient, when you do large-scale wetland restoration, your survival rate is 100%, and your mortality rate is 0. The patient always lives, and the patient is way better off afterwards than when you started. You just have to get past this. This looks like a big, imposing, ugly machine, and people are going to try and make you afraid of this. That's what they do. They make you afraid. They keep you uninformed, and they want you to be afraid. That's not what our party does. That's what the other guys do, right? They're doing it right now. They're saying, oh, the president's death panels are going to come and get your grandma. Defund the government to stop Obamacare. Make you afraid. We don't do that. We rise above that. This machine has big paddle wheels in the back, and it's slowly scraping this wetland vegetation called pickleweed and 6 inches of soil beneath it, vital for the pickleweed's growth. And after 10,000 passes with this machine, we had a stockpile 100 feet long and 35 feet high of wetland topsoil with pickleweed cuttings mixed in. Hold that thought. Hold that thought.
What happened to all the moles in the hole?
You just have to acknowledge the pain of seeing whatever is there go
God.
away. Accept it as necessary to get to the end of the game and embrace it. A 44-acre tidal basin. It's teeming with fish today.
Fishes.
16 acres of the bottom of this basin is covered with eelgrass, a prime fish reproductive habitat. We didn't plant it. A big chunk of it floated in on the tide one day, and it just spread like wildfire. All that pickleweed and topsoil that we salvaged, we brought it back after we were done grading, and we put an even 2-inch layer all around the edge of the wetland area. There it is. It just came right up. No fertilizer. Don't need to water it. There's the tide. You just have to get by the pain of large-scale excavation and grading.
That's a killing, yeah.
And it's tough to watch. But this is not new. This is not revolutionary. This has been done on large and small scales 1,800 times up and down the Southern California coast. We spent $1.8 billion as a society doing wetland restoration. We've seen this movie many times before. This is east of the interstate where the farmers were growing tomatoes. We dug it out. It looks like the moon here. The next picture you're going to see was taken right up there, looking in the direction of this bulldozer. 2 years later. And this freshwater marsh vegetation, we didn't plant it. It just came up from cuttings that were in the soil and fresh groundwater that seeps down from the big homes up on the bluff that overwater their lawns. And all the area that we added dirt to, we just hydro-seeded, a mixture of mulch, water, and native plant seed. And you can't even walk in this area, it's so thick. We don't monitor this project. The California Coastal Commission does it independently. This is our project, and these are 3 reference wetlands, natural wetlands, against what we're compared to. Tijuana Estuary, Magoo Lagoon, Carpinteria Salt Marsh. After year 1, we're at 10 of 15 standards that the Coastal Commission imposes on Edison. After year 1. We'll be at 15 in probably 2 more years. And you put in trails and interpretive facilities, and you tell people what not to do, and the person taking the picture had a badge, and a radio, and a ticket book. You have to have well-regulated public access. Let me talk about large-scale community restoration, because there's a lot of drivel going around about, oh, Ballona, we need the community out there to restore it. It's a fallacy. It only works in tiny areas like the Friends have done. We've worked 25 years, and we've cleared 2 acres. You want to do a large-scale restoration at Ballona? Do the math. Do the math. You can read that. It would take 140 years. You don't want to wait that long. You won't get the volunteers. And you know what else? It's against the law. It's against the law. A project has to be feasible. You have to complete it within a reasonable amount of time. This is your law. You voted for it in the Coastal Act. Nobody's saying amend the Coastal Act. You've got to do it quickly. And there are employee health and safety issues. When are you going to get a bunch of volunteers out there and make them sign waivers and say, you know, if you break your leg or lose your life, sorry, you have to hold us harmless? That's not what our party does. No, we hire union contractors who pay fairly negotiated wages, pension, benefits, accidental death insurance. Asking people, a lot of people, to do something for nothing for a long period of time, that's what the other party does, not my party. This is community restoration. 4 college kids, loppers, and a wheelbarrow. That's as good as it gets. And they do good on those 2 acres of dunes that we've taken the weeds out of. The weeding has allowed the buckwheat to grow back in, and this endangered El Segundo blue butterfly finally feels comfortable enough to reproduce there. So it's a good thing. But you're not going to do it on a 600-acre restoration.
Doesn't need it.
Interpretive centers at Ballona, they go back to Ralph Schreiber's seminal study on the Ballona habitat. It actually predated what the Restoration Commission did. It's not new. We've already gone through this. Good location, public access is already there, 4 transportation routes, you can get to the site. It's 17, 20 feet high. The tide's way down there, and it's the most distant parcel in this ecological reserve from the coast, from the source of tide. The Little League is a 3rd rail. Think long and hard before you box our elected representatives into a cul-de-sac where people are asking them, well, now wait a minute, if animal rescue or whatever Annenberg wants to do is not compatible with an ecological reserve, how is a Little League compatible with an ecological reserve?
It's not. Get rid of it.
That's a tough case to make. You're backing yourself into a cul-de-sac of hypocrisy. Don't put our elected officials in that spot. Don't do that. Certainly not before you've read the EIR, not before you're informed.
Yeah,
And
right.
you've seen this. Let me talk. I'm almost done, Sheila.
Thank God.
You know, my good friend, the professor, had just speeded it up just a little. I want to talk about this visitor center thing in the context of what Friends of Ballona Wetlands does, besides the community restoration, and that's bringing kids out to get environmental education. Donors give us money to rent school buses to send to underserved schools to bring kids to the wetlands. 46,000 square foot facility with a big auditorium. Oh, wow, it's too big. Big thinking. Are you kidding me? There's 10 million people in the LA area, maybe more. Over 2 million of them are kids. That's not big thinking, that's barely adequate. We're not Little Rock, Arkansas. Apologies to any Razorbacks. We're not Asbury Park, New Jersey. This is Los Angeles. It's a big, big metropolitan area. I think probably the largest on the Pacific Rim. We don't need a visitor center. We don't want a 5,000 square foot self-serve kiosk. We want an educational facility. We want a campus annex for our schools that are screaming for that help. The Friends of Ballona Wetlands can handle 350 kids just as easily with the same staff we have as it takes one classroom. We just don't have the room. If only we had a place where we could bring 3 school buses in and manage the kids the way they need to be managed in a school. We could get that many out there, twice a day, in one day, and then we have 4 days remaining in the week to do the other work of the nonprofit. So here's your decision. This is what it comes down to, and my apologies to the Annenberg people if it's a little too direct. Somebody wants to give us this thing that we really need and we can really use, but there's no free lunch. They want something in return. And it really all comes down to, do we want to make a deal with Mrs. Annenberg and give her her animal? Her money is our money. Annenberg didn't sell arms, right?
That's all.
They didn't do petroleum and gas exploration. Our mothers bought TV Guide at the checkout stand. It's our money, right?
It's off the point. Who cares?
And don't forget about the Little League. And deal making and compromise. I mean, they're the engine of our political process. Nothing gets done if we don't make deals. That's what's happening in Washington right now. People won't make deals because these crazies have taken over another party that we have to have as a negotiating partner. You have to make a deal. If I can take off my Friends of Ballona Wetlands hat for a moment, and put on my David K. Private Citizen Local Democrat hat, to get that facility for the kids, I would not only take the money from Annenberg, I'd take it from the Koch brothers. That's right. That's right. I'll write the letter myself.
He would.
I would write the letter myself. Dear,
You got too far. You better put it on your head. That's
not a
way too
head.
far. This one is absolutely.
dear Koch brothers, look, you right-wing RBs, look what we are doing with your donation. Environmental education of school kids on a massive scale. Love, David K.
Yeah, but you know that they'd want their pet oil wells in the adoption center.
They're already
Forget what I
there.
said about CEQA and what is true. Just because you analyze it doesn't mean you have to build it. Don't make a hasty
Oh,
decision.
please.
Get well informed, get educated, take your time. My name is David K. I represent. Sorry to go over time, Sheila.
What an analogy. I take the money from the Koch brothers, I think not. I'm going to move along. We're going to go into a Q&A period for 10 minutes, but before I do, we have some club business we have to do. And just let me say this. I really want to thank our board members who worked so hard and putting the program together, especially adorable secretary who takes the minutes. Like a stroller who I can't live without, Vince Bertolini. Thank you very much. And again, thank all of you for coming. This is a very complicated project. It's emotional. The issues are highly charged. We all care tremendously about our wetlands, and we all have our visions of what we want it to look like and so on and so forth. So again, we're going to go into a Q&A session, but before I do that, I just need to do very quickly, may I have a motion or leak? Oh, you want to have?
Yes, the minutes from the last general membership meeting have been distributed to everyone. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as distributed?
Second.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
We got Q&A for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to go into the... I'm sorry.
It's just a motion to accept the minutes as distributed, yes. Made by, who's the making the motion, just like? Vince, oh, thank you. Carolyn, thanks, Carolyn.
Okay, we're going to go into Q&A for 10
Without
minutes.
objection? Thank you.
Sorry, Lee, but I'm trying to move us
That's
along.
all right.
We're really running behind schedule. Q&A begins, we're going to go, and can you time this for about 10
Sure.
minutes?
Okay.
And we're going to begin with our members, so please raise your hand and identify yourself and who you would like to address your question to. Jim, you want to start first?
Yeah, I had a question for Dr. Luce.
Yes.
And Dr. Kate. When you've spoken, it sounds as though you're anticipating a marsh in which there's tidal flows in and out on a regular daily basis. Is that correct?
There is that now in the tidal gate areas, and I anticipate that will at least be the same.
Okay, certainly that sounds like what happened down in San Dieguito
Yeah.
marsh.
And that is a Friends of Ballona position on the Ballona restoration.
Okay,
Biorestoration.
today I was reading a paper by David Jacobs, Eric Stein, and Travis Longcore
Yes.
from USC, UCLA, and one other place. Okay, I looked for any reference to that paper in either of your previous reports, and I couldn't find any reference to that. Their paper suggests that Ballona Wetlands was not one in which there was daily tidal flow, that the wetlands has largely been nourished or watered, maybe I should say, by periodic flows, freshwater flows coming down Ballona Creek. Would you be doing the wrong thing to have an intertidal marsh where you've got the tide coming in and out every day? It sounds from their paper like it would be, I won't say a disaster, but an expensive mistake to do that. Will your future paper, the next report, deal with that and deal with that whole issue as to whether it should be?
I'm sorry, I got to cut you off.
Okay, should it be?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.